right, I hit record. Hey, everybody, how are you today? It's Friday, and we're talking to Kara today, and we are talking about something we were talking right before we got on here, because for my house, there's two things that happen simultaneously. One, we have so many healthy choices right now because it is summer. And so we have our garden right out back and we have so many healthy choices. That is the plus. And the other side is I feel like there's sweets coming at us from left and right. And because we're sort of in that summer mode, you're like, oh yeah, we'll just have that. And then I just feel like we're sliding down a slippery slope. So welcome, Kara. I'm so glad you're here today so we can hear all the tips and tricks about that. And Kara, before we get into tips and tricks, tell us a little bit about your course coming out because it sounds so amazing. So tell us a little bit about it.
Yes, thank you. So I love being here again. Thanks for having me back. And yeah, so I have this online course. It's for how to raise an adventurous eater. It's really for ages 2 on up. So if you have some kid that's just really kind of, you find that there's a battle or you're just even concerned that your child's not eating enough or eating too much, this course really helps cover all of that. And it's on my website. You can get there easily. You purchase it. It's you have it forever. So it's just these videos that you can click through at your convenience. It's all really easy. I'm not making it homework or I don't know about you, but I don't want to be doing that in the summer, especially. And there's no times for that. So they're really approachable, just lessons. And after each lesson, there's action steps. So you can go in, listen, and then feel like, okay, what do I need? What do I do after this? And so that it really walks you through how to actually start applying everything. So I'll just say it's on there on my website.
And I was going to say, what I do love about it too, what you said earlier, is you get it, like you have it forever. So as our kids grow up, our struggles with eating change. With the same thing I was dealing with the 3-year-old is not something I'm talking to my 14-year-old about, although sometimes it is. But it changes. So it's nice that if it doesn't, that thing feels, whatever you're teaching in your course feels one way at this time, it might feel a different way when they're 9, but you can go back and say like, oh yeah, those were the fundamentals and here's some action steps to follow.
Yes. Yeah. And it's all about that kind of laying the foundation. So it's really a food parenting guide too. Of it. Sometimes it's not really necessarily about your child, what they're doing. It's kind of what you're doing, which is hard to hear.
I know.
But that can make a big difference on how mealtime goes. And so that can be applied for all ages. And then I'll keep adding courses or lessons to it. So if you think, well, I've already listened to it, there's always going to be more added. So that's also
right. Yep. And that's such a good point. When I'm coaching parents, I always say we have to look at parent habits and kid habits because we're cohabitating and we're codependent on each other for our emotional needs. So we have to look at both sides of it. Especially when it comes to consistency and follow through is so important. So tell us about sweets. What should we let in? What should we not let in? How should we approach it? How do you tell your kid no when it's something super fun, or do you tell your kid no? Fill me all in.
Yeah. Oh, there's like lots there. So we'll hit on a little bit there. So just kind of preface, we know that added sugar is something that we want to limit, I guess, not have on I guess we can have it on a daily basis, but we want to make sure that we're mindful of how much we're consuming. And so just as a preface, under 2 years of age, we really encourage just to try to avoid added sugar. I understand that's not probably possible, but that's the guideline of just trying your best not to, at that age, they don't know what they're missing. After 2 years, that's when they start to feel like, hey, I want that. Or they can start to notice like if you're restricting sugar from them, that's when it becomes a problem. So after 2 years of age, we really recommend 24 grams of added sugar is the recommendation. And really as a parent, just try to be mindful. If you go over that, it's not the end of the world either, but we just want to keep that as a framework to go by. But really my mentality around desserts is we want to keep it neutral. So if we start to elevate that food above all the other foods, and we start to use it as a reward too, that's when it becomes more of like, oh, this food is better or special or becomes a more enticing item than everything else. And so we really just want to keep it neutral. And to do that, just really don't emphasize, like if they say, hey, can I have a cookie? And it's again, you're in charge of what you serve your child and when you're serving it. And so if a cookie for snack time was not on in your thing that you're going to be offering, to say, hey, we're not having a cookie right now, but we might be having some s'mores later on tonight. Or just leave it. If you don't even have to say that, you can just say, we're not having a cookie right now. And not say like, oh, cookies are too much sugar, or you already had sugary cereal for breakfast, so you can't have a cookie now. And all of those things compound. If you keep saying those things, that's when they start to see those foods as something better. You lose that intuitive ability to see foods as equal. So that's one thing of just knowing that you're in control of the desserts. Of if they say, hey, can I have this at the grocery store? Say, hey, that's not on our grocery list today, but maybe next time we can add it to the grocery list. But you're again in charge, and just keep it neutral as much as possible, and leave it in moderation. So not saying you can't offer desserts, because I think that then goes the other direction of if you're completely restricting all these quote unquote fun foods, they're going to find it other places, say a friend's house or grandma and grandpa's, and then they might go crazy around it. So they just binge on it. They can't stop. And that's because they haven't had that chance to enjoy those foods, and they feel it's something that's restricted. And so same as adults, if we have something that's restricted, that's all we want all the time. So it's good to have that balance.
Yeah, and speaking to sugar in general, and then once it hits our system, in our brain, it really triggers that dopamine response. So it does feel like a reward in our brain. However, if we are eating it more than we should and in a constant manner, it's almost like an addiction, because we need a bigger fix to give us the sugar high. So that's when you're all of a sudden having arguments with kids about sugar, and having arguments about, no, you can't have that anymore because we didn't keep it in a healthy balance to begin with. And so they are searching for that additional sort of hit of sugar to make them feel better, because it does give them that reward in their brain. So, I talk a lot about those grams of sugar too. So just being mindful. I think you and I were sort of talking right before. I had to point out to my dad that his glass of orange juice in the morning, coupled with his cereal, was double the daily intake for sugar. So that's hitting that dopamine in his brain at a really high level, but he's going to crave it more during the day. And that breakfast is going to be really hard to retrain the brain, because it wants that sugar hit first thing in the morning.
Right. Yeah, that's really good. So lots of good things there. I think one thing too, of when we're having meals, just being mindful of the added sugar that we don't realize is in there, like bread, there's added sugar in there. The cereal, trying to find these foods or oatmeal, these foods that aren't supposed to be sweet. They're not a dessert. They're actually like a meal. And so plain yogurt, for instance, so instead of getting fruit, flavored yogurt, trying to get plain yogurt and add your own fruit into it. Yes. And all of those things, in order so that when you, just in your daily, day-to-day meals, you're not maxing out on sugar just by things that you don't actually think are sweet too. Right. So that way you're not overdoing it on sugar just with having your sandwich for lunch, and being just mindful of where added sugar can kind of sneak in. I think marketing does a great job of hiding that. And so we just need to be sure we're looking to see, oh, we're getting a lot of added sugar from the yogurt and the juice and the cereal. And what are some, not that you have to eliminate all those at once, but try to see, okay, what things can I start modifying or swapping out gradually that my family is okay with, and eventually get used to those changes.
I totally agree. And since in the Rooted Family Circle, we're talking about healthy eating, mindful eating, one of the journals that we do in there with the kids, which it goes exactly to what you were talking about with keeping it neutral. So not stop eating all that sugar and not putting an emotional thing on it. But there's actually a journal in there for kids called Sugar Detectives. And they very much are, have their little magnifying glass, and they get to be detectives and go through the house or through the grocery store and figure out how many grams of sugar they're eating during the day. And then that just helps sort of awaken the awareness. So bring that awareness then. And then what you were saying about planning out, then they can choose oh, well, I really love that glass of orange juice, but something later on in the day that might be a little bit more sugar, I don't really need that. And I can swap that out for something healthier. So it's just sort of giving kids the ownership in recognizing, oh, this has so much sugar, but from a very almost like, science minded way. Like we're just looking for the data. And then from the data, we can make choices based on that. So we're making decisions based on our logical, deductive thinking skills instead of from an emotional state.
Right. Yeah, I love that. And kind of going back to that, you mentioned earlier about, I forget what it was, but it just triggered my head to think of like the intuitive eating set things too. So if we're not restricting our kids from like, oh, you can't have that, or having this kind of punishment mentality to it, or these words that we're saying, a lot of times the kids are intuitive eaters. So if we're kind of thinking like, if I was around ice cream, I'd eat so much. Like we kind of think of our heads in our, like as adults, oh, I would never be able to stop. But actually for kids, because they're intuitive, they might have 1.5 cookies and they leave the other half. I don't know how many times I've heard that where they just don't finish all the dessert. And the adult is like, how are they able to do that? But it's because they're intuitive eaters. And when you don't, again, if you're allowing it in throughout, like being mindful about when you're incorporating it in, but you're still not restricting it completely, that's when they're still able to, okay, I can eat a little bit and then move on, because they're like, I'm not hungry anymore, or they're just done. So I think that's an important piece too, of a lot of times we think what we would do and we think that our kid would do the same thing, but really they're great at listening to their bodies too.
Yeah, I have noticed that they're really great because their habits aren't as ingrained as ours. So, if we go somewhere on vacation, and vacations for us tend to mean lots of desserts, like every night's dessert. And then I notice when we come back home, the expectation, because we've wired that habit for 7 days in a row, is what are we having for dessert? But then, it's not an intuitive eating. It's not that we felt that. It's just we've created a habit. So then having that reset time for our family and saying, like, for 3 days, we're going to do without. And then we're going to see how we feel about it. Like, do we want something or do we not want something? But just saying we're just doing it, and not we're taking it away. We did too much dessert on vacation, so we can't have dessert there. But just saying we're all going to reset our systems and sort of give it back to that balance that we had before. And then see how we feel about it.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's great. It goes back to that. We're just not having it tonight. Like it's not like, oh, we overate or we had too much. It's just as simple as like, the parent is in charge of what we're serving. And so it's like, we're just not having dessert tonight. And leave it at that. Like, it's just nothing. It's neutral, I guess, of just like, this just wasn't on the menu. And, we're maybe have some later on this week or something like that. But even just saying like, we're just not having dessert tonight. And so that kind of helps frame it a little bit like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I do think if you're used to the pushback, I will say this, if your kid's used to having that argument with you, then those first couple times you just say it very simply, you probably will get a ton of pushback. But if you stick with it and you are consistent in how you're going to parent that, like, I'm in it to win it for this week, that is my response, no matter what the other side is coming at me with, because they may beg, borrow, and steal, because they're having that response in their brain of, oh, shoot, we're changing. Their brain does not want to change the habit. The habit is what it wants to do because it's the easiest route. So I think that that's such an important point. If you consistently just have a very simple answer for them, then that will eventually become the norm, and that will become the new habit.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's exactly right. Just, again, staying firm. So like we talked about earlier this week, of really just staying firm. It's hard. Like when your kid fights back, it's like you want to, okay, well, it's going to give in, or we're going to have the dessert then. But if you do give in, that tells them that they're actually in control. And so they'll then keep pushing you. It makes it harder in the long run rather than if you just said, nope, we're not having it tonight, and really stick to that.
Yeah.
Like you said, in 3 or 4 days, it gets a lot easier.
Yeah. And I think that that's an excellent point, is sometimes that consistent parenting is the most important thing, but there can be room for if we are going to do this, here's my answer for this week. But can you help me come up with some healthy ideas for next week when we're going to, we might feel like dessert next week. So start thinking about some recipes you might want to make, and let's see if we can tweak them a little bit from our vacation to make them a little bit more healthy. And then the kids involved in the process, and then they feel like they have a buy-in. So the focus again then goes to helping you create healthy desserts for when you say it's time, and the argument of we're not having it starts to dissipate and it starts to go away because they've already moved on to the next thing. They moved on to next week when they're helping you. So fighting you this week is already off the table.
Yep. That's exactly right. That's so good because you can have something to look forward to, like next week. Okay, we know we're going to get dessert. It's just not right now. We can look forward to the next week or whenever you do offer it. So
I think as much as you can help, make them part of the solution to whatever problem they deem is going on. I don't deem that not getting dessert is a problem, but I understand that some people sitting around my dinner table do deem it a major problem. So let's all work on a co-creative solution together, but in the time frame that myself as the parent says is the time frame we're going to work on it. So
yeah, I love that. That's really good.
Oh, good. Well, man, I'm telling you, Kara, when we all are able to get back together, I would love to do some kind of cooking class or something with you. We've had it on our plate for so long, and we've never been like a kid Kara cooking class where even like I'm thinking parents could come and we just learn so many of your tricks. So I think it's amazing that you have this new course that parents can go to, because I think they do need help now. And I do think there's so many things right now in the world we can't control. What we can control is helping our kids to be healthy and giving them healthy choices that'll boost their health, their brain health. We didn't even go into that, but there's like a whole nother, I'll talk about it a different day, about how many neurotransmitters that make you happy actually lie in your gut, and it's more than your brain. So we can do something to help boost our kids' mood and their immune system and keep them healthy. So we can focus on the things we can control. And so one of them is your How to Raise an Adventurous Eater course that can help parents with that. So I think that's so important to take the fear away of what's going on in the world right now and what's going on with schools. Here's what I can focus on. I can focus on raising a happy, healthy kid. If you need help, go to Kara's website. It's ticking below and jump on it. And if you want to come join me at the Rooted Family Circle, this is what we're talking about this month. So that, again, gives you things for the kids to do, things for you to learn about, but there's all your resources for giving you things to focus on for this month. So I'm just so happy that we got to offer that. And Kara, thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much. This was so fun. Just a great community. It's great talking with you. And yeah, I just hope that just my goal is to help families. So again, I'm just all about not shaming what you're doing, but really helping you, kind of coming alongside you and being like, this is how we can make it better. You don't have to have this struggle every night. This is one thing, like you said, you're in control of this. So let's work together and see how we can make that happen. So but thank you so much. I love being here.
Gosh, you're so welcome. If you have questions or comments, or you want Kara to answer something, stick it down in the comments below and we will get to you. We will connect you with whatever information you need or whatever specific problem you're having. I mean, Kara and I are both happy to send you a quick email and say like, hey, let's connect this way, or this is in the course. If you have questions about what's in Kara's course, like, does this cover this specific thing of my kids? She can answer that for you. So just stick it in the comments so we can help make the world a better place. Thank you, Kara, for being here.
Thank you so much.
Oh, have a great rest of your weekend.
Perfect.